Hello everyone. We're going to be focusing on Chief Architect X10 today from the basic level, and I'm going to introduce some fundamentals and how-tos that you'll be able to use to create your own creative designs once you kind of have these things under your belt. Like I said, I'm going to be using X10, but I think everything that I'm going to be showing you is applicable to any version of Chief Architect, all the way down, let's say 5 or 6 versions. There's nothing special in terms of extra features that I'm going to be using that older versions didn't have. So if you're not in my class and you're one of my members from a different location around the world, and if you have a different version, I don't believe anything that I'm going to be showing you won't be able to be done in any other version, as well as in the future too. So if you have a newer version, I believe this would work. So moving forward, if you haven't used Chief Architect, this video is for you because I'm going to be going over the basics of what to do as if you have not used it before. So when you open up your Chief Architect application on your computer, specifically I believe on PC, you're going to be greeted with a welcome screen here, and it's going to have a few things available for you. And I believe the newer versions are going to have getting started, training videos, and so forth in terms of resources. So if obviously this video isn't doing the trick for you, I would say use the program's specific educational content. If you haven't created any additional files or previous files, you won't see any history here like I have in the past. You can see that there are plans here, and then there also is a layout. So if you look up at the top, we can create a new plan and we can create a new layout as well as something from a template. If I were to download something off of Chief Architect's website or any user content created that were saved into a template, I'd be able to load that and then kind of a jumping off point. We're going to be starting a new plan, and this is something that you would consider if you were if you have experience in CAD. You've created parts and you've created drawings. Obviously the drawings are representations of the three-dimensional parts, and that's kind of what a layout is. A layout is a representation of a three-dimensional, let's say, architectural design. So the floor plan itself, the nuts and bolts, the windows, the doors, the walls, the topography, and so forth are all obviously designed here in the plan, and then when you are ready to present to either an audience or send it off to somebody, technically communicate anything specific that you intend, you're going to be selecting a layout and then selecting what appropriate views, what size piece of paper this needs to be printed on, whether it's on a plotter and something large or something that's smaller on an 8.5 by 11 printer. In my class specifically, we're going to be doing 8.5 by 11 standard letter size paper. However, we can scale this to any size we want. For this specific video, we're going to be focusing on the plan. So moving forward to get started, we're just going to click Plan. And once the application loads and we should see some toolbars, we'll be able to kind of move forward. It's been a while since this software has been turned on, so I anticipate some bumps along the way. And what you can see here is our database and library is building itself. This can be done independently of you using the software, so once you run it, you can kind of let it sit in the background, or you can wait. As you can see, depending on your internet connectivity and speed, this will take longer. What you see here up on the screen is your cursor has a horizontal and a vertical line attached to it, so you can easily line things up horizontally across the screen or vertically up and down the screen to where your mouse currently is present. And it's really important to line things up across your property or your floor plan. You can also see that there's a grid here, and there's specific grid settings, and to be honest, at this point moving forward, I'm not going to be going into them just because I don't specifically have the settings rehearsed, and I don't want to be bumbling around in terms of the settings. If I were to guess, it would probably be under Tools, and there'd probably be some sort of either setting or configuration where we'd be able to modify. There's also preferences somewhere else along the lines, but as it's right here. So we can set up our grid and so forth, but I believe my grid has already been set up. You can also reset to default values, but the grid should be set up to square feet, specifically in the, let's say, the imperial system. And if you're in the metric system, you might want to go over to preferences and then change them. But I believe the default's set to square feet. And if I scroll in, you can see that there are kind of some larger grid lines, and then there's some faded grid lines. So there should be 12 by 12, 144 square inches here. And if I zoom in, we should be able to count. Now I'm down to inches. If I zoom out, you can see that I'm out to feet, and so forth. You can also take note at your X, Y, Z position. Z should be 0 at this point. If we were to change floors that you can see here, you would probably see the Z change in terms of height, because we'll be vertically going up or vertically going down. We could be in the basement, and this should probably read negative. Our tools are here at the top, and this is a default view here. So if you don't see this, once again, I would look into how to set up the details of your menu. But over here, your display options will allow you to check and uncheck various things for visibility. Now this looks like specifically to see doors and walls and cabinets and labels, so that's not the one that I was looking for. Here's your preferences tools for probably quickly changing your units. Let's see here. This one here is resetting to default options. And then also over tools, you can go to toolbars and hotkeys. And here's where you could either customize your toolbars, you can lock them to keep them from being moved. You can customize hotkeys, so if you use a specific tool often and you want to like map it to a specific letter on your keyboard, you can go here. But ultimately, customizing toolbars will allow you to go to configurations and switch to default configuration. I could switch to Cad configuration. As you can see up here horizontally, my tools have changed. Let's say if we were doing terrain and I needed topography tools, I can switch to those. We're going to focus specifically on the default configuration. If I were to go to extended tool configuration, you'll see that there are 2 bars, and it just allows you to see more at once. Honestly, for this video, we're just going to focus on specifically default. Okay, so once again, that was under tools, toolbars and hotkey, customize. Often my students will drag out a toolbar and accidentally close it, and now they can't see it anymore. This specifically is useful to reset your toolbars back to default. Okay, so let's get started. Looking at your toolbar, we have, if you hover over things and let them sit for a while, you'll see a balloon pop up that will say specifically what it is that you're hovering. So as you can see, straight exterior wall. So you can assume this would be curved. I believe this is railings, right? We can break a wall. We have doors, windows, base cabinets, electrical outlets, stairs, building multiple floors, as well as the basement, adding roofs, specifically auto generation of framing. What we're going to be doing today is going to assume that there is a frame there. However, without going through this specific menu and generating the framing tools and the frame itself, there won't be one to show in terms of a drawing. So if you were to do some construction work and you would need to have actually a plan for your frame beyond the assumed 16-inch on center stick frame method, you would then want to build that. Same thing with deck framing, or actually, yeah, your joists, and then obviously your rafters, and so forth. Okay, we can all the way go down to manual dimensions, the different cross sections, and these are your view options. Okay, so we're going to focus specifically on creating a basic house at this point. Any tool that you see a downward facing arrow will have what they call children menus within them. So these are the children of the wall menu. So we can do straight exterior, straight interior, straight foundation, and so forth. So that's really important to pay attention to. And you'll actually see visually that there's a difference between the two. And mechanically there's differences as well. So we're going to stick with straight exterior. And if you click and drag, you can kind of see the units in inches and feet, or feet in inches. Okay, so I would say drag something in terms of an approximate length, and then we're going to change it. So I have my first horizontal exterior wall, and I'm going to stick to 30 feet for my horizontal width. This is going to be a fairly small home, just to kind of explain the basics. So now that I have that, zooming in, as you can see here, there's obviously a couple things that have happened when you draw a wall, as you can see here. Oops, sorry. Right, there's layers, and actually you can see there's almost like a mirror reflection here. So I'm going to use my print screen tool. I'm supposed to use my print screen tool. Light shot doesn't seem to like to work for some reason in this application. That's weird. I wonder if that has something to do with my streaming. All right. So moving forward, I'm just not going to be able to draw on the screen, but as you can see here, we have two walls. There's actually a different, almost like a candy striped horizontal bar here, and then there's one here. That is your outside exterior sheathing. That is the siding of your house. And then the wall framing members will be inside here. The black will represent the sheetrock that would go on top of the framing. Obviously the sheetrock on the inside of your house would be painted. There would be sheathing on the outside of your house, followed by some sort of house wrap and then a siding. And then there'd be insulation on the inside. So that's kind of what you're actually automatically given when you just create a simple wall. I'm going to just window select this. I'm not expecting you to create my example wall segment here. Okay, so I just have a 30-foot wall. If I click on it, you can see that it's 30 feet. If it wasn't 30 feet, click on it, and then you'll see a number. Your cursor will change to a hand, and at that point, you can change the number. So if I wanted it to be 35 feet, I have to grow an additional 5 feet. I could go to the right 5 feet, I could go to the left 5 feet, or I can split it and go 2.5 feet both directions. So whenever you click one of these three options, it will actually do that. So I'm going to just grow to the right and press enter, and as you can see, the wall went to the right. Now that's really important when you have a structure already built. At this point, it obviously didn't matter. So I'm just going to change it back to 30 feet, apostrophe, and I'm just going to pull it in from the same edge it came from and press enter. And actually I did the opposite. So let's just go back. I'm going to hit Control Z and do that again. 30. And the arrowhead is going to be the direction of what will change. So as you can see, the arrow is pointing to this side of the wall. So when I press enter, this side of the wall should be the one that moves. As you can see, that's what happened. Okay. So let's just continue making our walls. So if we're going to do something small, let's do like 30 by 25. As you know, I didn't create a 25 foot, let's say, depth from the front of the house to the back of the house. It's a little bit different, but that's okay. Don't change the measurements at this point. Let's drag this over. As you can see, my snap line will show up when I get near it. I'm going to let go of my mouse when I kind of get into the ballpark. And then I'm just going to click and drag up at this point. This is where the cursors really help. As you can see, when you snap, okay, you can see that the corners themselves specifically will heal themselves and become a solid perimeter around the building. Right? So if you don't also, for whatever reason, if things aren't snapping, same scenario, there is a option here that allows you to snap, and I believe it could be under preferences, and then there's snap settings here. So you want to have object snaps. Angle snaps is really helpful. There are common angles that we will use, and having to hand draw them or drag them into the exact location is impossible. And then grid snaps. So I have these three turned on. In older versions, it looks like they're pushed in buttons when they're turned on. Here you can visually see that they're turned on by check marks, and they're also blue. So as I said, the size wasn't that important at the moment. We initially click to the white arrow. If we click on a wall, you can see it's 30. You can see that the depth minus the house sheathing, but including the exterior walls, which actually are 6-inch or 5.5-inch thick walls. They're a little bit wider than, let's say, the interior because they have insulation. But those measurements are included here. So if you wanted additional, if you wanted it to be exactly 25 feet on the inside, you'll actually have to account for this. For this video, we're not going that deep into the specifics. So I'm going to click on this wall. As you can see, it says 22 feet 5 inches, and if you look at the leader lines, it is pointing once again to the walls, not the sheathing or the siding of the house. Okay? So it doesn't necessarily make a difference. I'm going to go 30 by 25. So if you click this and then click the number on the outside of your house, you can type in 25. Honestly, it doesn't matter what side of the house grows. So I'm just going to press enter, and you notice things changed quite a bit. So I put 25, but I didn't actually put the unit of measurement. And if you don't implicate feet or imply that you're going to be creating feet by marking it with the apostrophe, it's going to automatically assume that it's actually inches. So we're going to hit Control Z and undo that. And I'm going to click here again, and once again, I just hit 25. That's going to go to inches. So if you wanted 10 feet, you could put 120, and you would get 10 feet. But at this point, we're going to use our inches and feet markings. And so I said I wanted 25, apostrophe, press enter, and now we're all set. So at this point, no matter what wall, since these are horizontally connected, you should see 25. If you click here, you should see 25. If you click here, you should see 30, and same thing, you should see 30. You also should see that all 4 corners of your building have been created, and they're clean. There's no broken wall, except for if you were to click on it, you can see there's a wall specific to what you've selected. You should also see that it's 750 square feet. So like I said, this is a very small home. Not intending this to be a very difficult, laborious project. I want to just show you the basics. So we have an enclosed perimeter using a straight exterior wall. We have 750 square feet auto-calculated. If I click on the inside, you can see that I can actually select that interior area. And that's because, once again, that the 4 walls have snapped and are connected together. If I hold Shift on the keyboard and press K, Shift K should give us a 3-dimensional view of what we created. Now this is default. These are default settings. These are default textures. We have this like teal green color I'm personally not fond of, but that's irrelevant at this point. You can see if we zoom in, you can see that this is, let's say, the header plate of our frame. You could consider that there's a sill plate under here. You can see that there's OSB, kind of in like a tiled brick-like pattern, the way that you would put down a subfloor. You can see that there's a hollow section under here because there are no joists. Obviously, there would need to be floor joists here for this to be structurally accurate, and we have not built those yet. If you remember when I was going over those tools over here, if I were to switch the tab, you can see like the tools themselves right here, I could auto-generate floor joists. You can see that there's multiple tabs here when I bounce back and forth. So this was the Shift K, okay? The Shift K view, okay, and that's the full perspective overview. And over here is our floor plan. You also notice at this point, this is your camera. So what you see here is represented as, that's the perspective. So I know that I'm looking at, if we were calling this the back of the building, I'm looking at the back of the building approximately from this far away with this perspective. My camera view's wide angle will focus from this point here to this point here, and that's what I'm looking at when I come over to there. Okay? In terms of vertical height, this is also positioned in a different position above the floor, above the ground, floating in space. Now I could move this. I can click on this camera and say this camera should be back a little bit, and then also this camera maybe should be rotated. Oops, that's not the one I wanted. Right here, I believe, is maybe over here. So I could move this, and if I were to switch, that's the specific view that I just moved the camera in. It's a pretty useful point at this moment because there's really no intention for me. I don't really care what you're looking at this moment. But if I intended you to see a specific view, this would be important. You can just close this small sub window here, and it would just go away, be back to your floor plan, and your camera is gone. But Shift K on the keyboard lets you quickly view your structure. This is probably the most useful three-dimensional view that you can use. So I'm going to close this tab at the moment. As you can see, everything is fairly incomplete. But you saw that there was a white covering over this, and that is your ceiling. You could see that there was wood. That was your interior framing. You could see that there was siding on the outside. You could see that there was OSB, oriented strand board, for the subfloor. It was layered properly the way that you would construct it for structural rigidity. And so it's fairly accurate and easy program to make things look the way that they should in terms of construction standards here in the United States. But moving forward, let's add some doors and windows. We're going to focus on a roof, and we're going to add 2 standard gables, and we're just going to make like a small cape style home. Let's say if the north pointer was facing upward, we know that obviously north is up here, east, south, west. I should be able to kind of show that, and I don't know if it's under Cad if I remember. If we go to points, bear with me for 1 second. There should be a north pointer, and we could actually indicate what direction, and then when I say north, east, south, and west, you'll know exactly what I mean. But it is in this area. We could place a point, lines, here we go. So under lines, if you scroll down to north pointer, I'm just going to click and drag and say that that's north. Okay, that way I could say that this is the north facing side, this is the south facing side, east and west facing. So now if you're in the northern hemisphere, you know what side the sun is going to rise and set. You know what side is going to be colder and warmer, right? So let's add a door. Okay, so if we drop this down, we have standard hinge door. And you're going to see a shadow of the door here before I commit. I'm going to have it off center. Okay, at this point, I don't specifically care where you placed it. We can put some dimensions in a little while. So we have a door there. Let's put a back door approximately here. And this is a fairly small house, so I don't believe that we really need a side door at this moment. Front and back are fairly close together. They're literally 25 feet apart. But you can add your own side door if you needed, and so forth. So those are our exterior doors. We can specifically specify that, and we can click on these and go into their options by highlighting them with the white arrow and then clicking the open door at the bottom left corner, and the properties for what we have selected will be visible. Okay, so here's our general options. This is what the exterior door looks like. You can actually click and drag. You can see the framing. This is the inside of the door. This is the outside of the door. You can see the door lights here. You can see the door hardware. You can change, honestly, all of this. You can zoom in and look at all of these features. So you can get really, really specific if you choose to be. Okay. Right now it's 36 inches by 80 inches tall. It's 1 3/4 inch thick. That is the door slab itself. If you really care to mess around with it in terms of style, you can drop this down and you could play with these, or you can go into the library. So if I switch this to the glass slab, right? Default obviously is where we are. You can change the panel, and as you can see, things are changing here. Louvered, glass louvered, and then you can go into your library and select specific doors if you cared so much to do so. And this is where you can really spend a lot of time looking at all the many options that are here. And then you can actually search for things, you can download additional libraries and so forth. We aren't going to be doing that for today. You're just going to go to slab door. Actually, we'll stick to default. I actually like this style door personally. I like the little ledger here in front of the lights. And actually have a door very similar I put into my home that looks like this. But I'm going to leave this here. In terms of color, of course, you can go and mess around with that. There's casings, lentils, lights, the door jamb itself. You want to add an arch to the door. Right now we have an arch door. Obviously, the slab itself doesn't quite match the frame. So you can definitely select inappropriate options for what you have previously selected in earlier options. But you could really go down pretty specifically. If there's an energy R rating value that you're really caring about in terms of like insulation, you can kind of mess with the type of glass glazing that there are and so forth. You can play with all kinds of energy factors and so forth. Same thing with material. And then you can actually type in specific building code information, manufacturer, supplier. If this was really something that you're going to be showing a customer, you may need to plan this out because, God forbid, a customer loved what you created and you said, nope, we can't create this because, once again, I created this from my own imagination and you can't buy this door. So these specific things could be specified, spec'd out to match what you could buy in the store. For today, we're just going to leave them like this. As I said, this is an introduction video, so I am explaining a lot, and this obviously is probably not the most interesting thing you've ever experienced before in the past. But once again, these are important options. So we have 2 doors, we have 4 walls, we have a north pointer, 750 square feet. Let's add some windows. I'm going to put a little window here. As you can see, when you hover, you can then go ahead and place them. I'm going to click here, and we'll widen this window here, and maybe here. Okay. As you notice, these windows aren't lined up. This is where the cursor comes in. It's actually pretty useful. I can drag this so things are lined up. Obviously, you can see that there are numbers here, so that actually would be probably the best way to do it. If I really cared that this window is 4 feet away from the wall, let's say the north-facing wall, you click the window, you click the number that represents how far away that window is from the north-facing wall, 4 apostrophe, press enter. As you can see, it shifted down. So if, once again, this was something specifically important, now we know it's exactly 4 feet away. The window is 36 inches or 3 feet. I told you we were going to make this window wider, so I'm going to click on this window. Since this is the front of the house, I'm going to select, it's hard for me to show you this because when you zoom in it doesn't get bigger, but there is a little handle here. I can click this specifically. We're going to ignore the schedule number for today, but we can drag this out, and let's say I wanted to have like a 7-foot window, okay, in the front. In terms of width, I'm pretty happy with it. It's obviously not the right in terms of options. We're going to go into that in just a second. But it's 5 feet, 9.5 inches away. So I'm going to click this and say I want this to be 7 feet away. Press enter. Drag this direction. Make this exactly 7. I could click this and change it as well. So anytime you can click on a number, you can then change that value. So let's shift K and take a look at our creation with one final modification. So I'm going to click this really quick, and let's just make this 6 feet away. Press enter. As you can see, it shifted down. Okay, but it's still a 3-foot window. This is a 3-foot window. Depending on what side the window you click on, you will get interior or exterior dimensions. If you're on the right half or the left half of the middle, you'll get those. As you can see, I'm 4 feet away from the outside of the house, so there's a visual appeal. Interior-wise, it's a little bit less. As you can see, 3 feet, 6.5 inches, because we're not factoring in the wall thickness. So as I said, we're going to shift K now, shift K, and take a look at our options. Okay, there's that 7-foot wide front window. There's the front door. There's your side window. I believe that was your east facing. This is our west facing. You're going to get more sun in the afternoon. And then obviously here's your north facing. And we're not going to put windows back here because it's cold. North facing is cold, so we're going to make this a little bit more energy efficient for a northern hemisphere construction. So at this point, I didn't close my camera view, as you can see, so my camera is still representing what I'm looking at. So sometimes it gets confusing and you don't know what you're looking at anymore. It's important to go back to your floor plan and see specifically what the camera's pointing at. If I click close here, you're going to see the camera go away. All right, so at this point, I told you I wanted to change this window because it's just something that I don't think you're going to be able to buy, a 7-foot wide double hung window. So we're going to click this window itself. It's highlighted. We're going to click the options here. When you do that, you can see the window. It's an exterior double hung window. You can drop this down And we could say, right, that's our double hung, as I said. You have your various panels here, your sash or window, they'll open and close, they're double hung. You could specifically say triple awning, right, if you needed a design that looked like this. So I'm just going to press, I believe, if I can press down, you can kind of go through the various options, right? Triple sliding, so the right and the left will slide. I believe the middle will be a fixed pane. This one's a single. Double awning, triple awning, single hopper, double hopper, and we can still go through. And then we have louvered, glass louvered. Pass through, meaning there's no glass here. It's a pass through, maybe a breakfast bar or a window between one other room and so forth. It's probably not the best location for one on an exterior part of the building. So I'm just going to go with the triple sliding window. It does say 84, right? And so that should be our 7 feet. It's 48 inches tall. We have 32 inches from the floor up. So if you wanted this to be lower or higher, consider safety and why we would want windows where they currently are by default versus maybe low on the floor if you think of children and so forth. We obviously wouldn't want a child to run into the window and break it and then harm themselves, right? And then obviously all of the different colors and options that you can select. You want an arch window and so forth. You can go and select that if there was some compatible options here, just like the door, okay? So for the most part, we leave these by default. So you're just going to say okay. And you can notice that it's a little bit different. As you can see, there's the sliders. There's our fixed. If I do Shift K, you can see it looks a little bit more appropriate. Maybe we can have some landscaping in front of this window here. I'm going to leave this one in the position where it is. If you don't like the door off center, I like things off center and asymmetrical, but that's a personal design trait. So I'm going to close this, and we are basically done with exterior setup at this moment. So let's just kind of figure out how we're going to design our floor plan. I have an idea in mind. It's fairly unrehearsed and kind of improv, but I do have some ideas. We do need a bathroom. We need a bedroom, we need a kitchen, and we need a living space. We're probably not going to go into second floors with this video because this video is already 32 minutes in terms of running length. So we're going to go to straight interior wall, okay? And at this point, once again, we're going to kind of eyeball where these things are, but I would imagine living space would probably make sense the best right here in front of the big window. An entryway possibly, maybe into an open floor plan of a kitchen, and then maybe a bathroom and a bedroom. We're not going to create a master bathroom just purely because this is going to be a single floor home, and if you had guests over, you wouldn't want to have them run into your bedroom to go to the bathroom. So we'll probably put the bathroom centrally located with that being said. So with that, moving forward, I'm going to create the bedroom over here on the right, the bathroom kind of in the middle, and then maybe the kitchen that walks out into the backyard of the building. So when you have your exterior walls selected, you'll see the exterior wall option. You're going to drop this down. You're going to select interior wall, and then you're going to drag an approximation of what you want. We're going to size this later, interior-wise, but let's put our bedroom here. When you walk in, we have an open area where, let's say, we're going to hang our shoes and put our coats and stuff like that. More of a utilitarian room. To the left, we have our living space. Over here, we're going to have our kitchen, where we can kind of look, let's say, westward while we're cooking, and then maybe our bathroom to the left side, west of the bedroom, the single floor bedroom. So I'm going to drag another wall down and then attach. This is obviously too large of a bathroom, but we have the ingredients of what we want. This is going to be a fairly large open floor plan because it's a tiny house, and it's going to give us the feel that this building is bigger than it really is. If I were to fill this floor plan with interior walls, it would be very cavernous, tiny, and cramped. So at this moment, you can see that I have a bathroom space, I have a bedroom space, and I have a large space here in terms of what we're going to use for our kitchen and our living spaces here. So bathroom, if you were to click on various walls, you'll see if I wanted this bathroom to be 8 feet wide, 8 apostrophe, and I want the left side wall to move, I'm going to click this and press enter. And as you saw that this wall moved. I think 8 feet wide is a little bit excessive. Let's do 6 feet. Click, enter. In terms of depth, we'll leave it, and let's just see what the fixtures do in terms of fitting. And then over here, here's our bedroom. Let's just play around with the options of what happens. So if I click on this wall, you can see it's 9 feet, 9 3/16 inches away. Pay attention to where it's pointing. It's pointing to the actual other side of the wall. So if you cared as much as to keep these additional inches, I believe there's 5 with the framing and the sheetrock, you would have to factor that in. There's other ways to draw it, but I think it's overly complicated and unnecessary. So we're going to click this and say, you know what, I want this bedroom to really be like 12 feet wide. It's the only bedroom in the house. So if I do this, as you can see, it kind of moved everything else. So this really can have a negative effect on your complicated floor plan if you had one. At this point, I remembered that I wanted my bathroom to be 6 feet wide. So I'm going to click this number, 6 apostrophe, oops, Control Z, I did not intend for that to happen. I want this wall to go horizontally out. I'm looking for the arrows. I'm going to click this wall here. There we go. So we have a horizontal. Don't click the vertical. Click a horizontal wall. 6 feet. Arrow. Don't forget the apostrophe. Press enter. It's going to move. So we have a 6 foot wide bathroom. Maybe we should put a window here. Possibly a window here. And maybe even move this depending on what we want it to look like. In terms of depth, I'm just going to kind of leave it this way until I see other things fit. I might drag this wall inwards and give myself some more space if it's unnecessarily large in that bathroom. So this is what the exterior and interior walls look like. Interior are yellow based on my settings. You can see a little bit of inaccuracy here. We could probably drag this one way or the other to fix this. What I would do, actually, just because my measurements aren't that important, I would just delete the wall that was off, grab my specific corner, and I'm snapping at this point. You can see now it looks perfect. I don't have the inaccuracy. So if you have a misbehaving wall, just delete it and then redraw it with a snap, and you won't have this problem. Okay. Let's see. Room divider. In earlier versions, this was an invisible wall. Room divider should be a room separation. So if I'm going to come into my kitchen might be tiled differently than, let's say, my living space that might be carpeted. So if I were to drag a room divider down, let's say here, and over to here, I now have an area that I could say that this is a tiled area where if I drop something messy, it's not going to mess up my carpet. Maybe I make this hardwood floor. Maybe I do a carpet, but you get the idea. So the room divider lets you kind of divide up a larger area as if there were walls there, but there literally will not be. Okay. Let's throw in some interior doors. So let's drop this down, and we're just going to use a standard hinge door. We're going to be on an interior wall. So I think by default, it'll automatically select interior style doors. I'm going to have my hinge swing inward. It would probably be a poor usage of space here. Or I could put it over here and have it swing towards the wall, and we can modify that. But at the moment, this looks like a convenient location. In terms of the bathroom door, that's another kind of compromise. Do I want the door to swing in to a smaller room, take up square feet, or do I want it to swing out and possibly get in the way of people walking around inside the building? At this point, I'm not going to be building this, so I'm just going to have it swing inwards. And so I have my bedroom, my bathroom, my kitchen area, my living space, and maybe I want this to kind of be like a little bit of a tiled mudroom. So I'm just going to grab my floor divider and say, when you come in, we're going to kind of have a little area, fairly large area to be honest, to where you're going to like walk in with possibly muddy shoes. Maybe we'll have some shoe racks and so forth over here on the right. I didn't pay too close attention to detail in terms of numbers at this point, but if you have something that looks similar to, I think at this point you kind of have an idea of where we're going and what it looks like. At this point, I'm going to stop with the video, and the next video is going to focus on specifically interior design, setting up our fixtures, our base cabinets, our wall cabinets, specifying what type of flooring we want in these 5 rooms or 5 areas, right? 1 area, 2 areas, 3 areas, 4 areas, 5 areas. I'll extend this further out into topography in future videos, as well as landscaping, as well as creating a layout. I'm not going to create a second floor at this point. I will create a foundation in the basement. However, I think we're going to use a crawl space utilitarian type of area where you're not going to be able to walk down into the basement as if you would see something like in a traditional home in, let's say, Connecticut. But at this point, I'm going to hit File Save and take care of the rest the next time I talk to you. Sorry this was a long video. I would imagine this would take several days to consume if you're not going to sit down and watch this from start to finish. Just pause and then save your progress and then continue moving forward the next time we meet. Have a good day, and